Yes, so welcome. We are very happy to have all of you with us for this webinar sponsored by the Women Scholars Network of the International Association for the History of Religions. My name is Amy Alaco. I am one of the two co-coordinators of the Women Scholars Network, along with Milda, who can introduce herself and say a bit more about the WSN, the Women Scholars Network now.
Yeah. So hello, everyone. My name is Milda Ališauskienė, and I'm one of the coordinators of IAHR Women Scholars Network, together with Amy Alaco. And I would like to say to you some important information about Women Scholars Network, that it's a worldwide forum to connect women working in the field of study of religions. And the basic aim of this network is to encourage scholarly exchange and help solidify friendships that have begun at various IAHR conferences in different countries and regions. And Women Scholars Network has been founded in 2006 by IAHR past president Rosalind Hackett and former IAHR executive committee member Morni Joy. And since 2020, Amy and myself, we have been serving as network coordinators. The main venue for exchanging information about network activities is our Facebook group, which currently has more than 600 members. So you are very welcome to join it. And our next meeting in person is scheduled during the IAHR Congress, which will take place this year in August in Krakow. And our meeting will take place on the August 25th, Monday, from 6 p.m. So everyone is very welcome to join us. Please check the program for the exact venue of our meeting.
Thank you so much, Milda. I've already said that my name is Amy Alaco. I'm a professor of religious studies and the director of the Multi-Faith Scholars Program at Elon University in North Carolina in the USA. And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce today's panel and the project that it focuses on. We're here to launch and celebrate the publication of a new co-edited volume titled Religion and Gender Equality Around the Baltic Sea, which was published by Routledge in 2025. And it's co-edited by three scholars, Milda Ališauskienė, Eglė Aleknaitė, and Marianne Bjelland Kartzow. So this is a multidisciplinary volume, and you'll hear more about its structure from the participants in a moment. The aim of the volume is to rethink intersections of gender and religion, along with secular and religious, in supporting or challenging gender equality at the individual, institutional, and societal levels. And it's based on fieldwork that was carried out across 4 countries. In the different chapters, we have representation from Norway, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. And as you'll hear a bit more from Milda, it was supported by an EEA grant. And I'm just really pleased to see this fresh research, multidisciplinary in nature, in this very under-researched area. And so in a moment, I will introduce each of the panelists, and then Milda will say a bit more about the project itself. So we'll begin today with Marianne Bjelland Kartzow, who is a professor of New Testament Studies at the University of Oslo. Welcome, Marianne. She's been at the University of Oslo since 2013. She's also the program leader for the master program, Religion and Diversity, Conflict and Coexistence at the Faculty of Theology. She's lived 2 years in Berlin in Germany, where she served as a minister in the Norwegian Church, while continuing her academic work as a research fellow at the University of South Africa, UNISA, from 2011 through 2014. Her research interests include New Testament exegesis and reception history, interpretive issues, gender theory, and ancient social history or everyday life. Milda Ališauskienė is a professor of sociology in the Department of Sociology at Vytautas Magnus University in Kaunas, Lithuania. Her research interests include religion in the post-socialist society, religion and state relations, religious diversity, religious fundamentalism, new religions, gender, and religion. And Milda is the principal investigator in the research project titled Religion and Gender Equality, Baltic and Nordic Developments. You'll hear more about these projects in a moment. And Kull is a professor of systematic theology at the University of Tartu in Estonia. Her research interests are techno-science, techno-nature, and religion, gender, justice, religion, and nature, and climate change. He is currently a vice chair of the European Society for Intercultural Theology and Interreligious Studies, a fellow of the International Society of Science and Religion, and a member of the editorial board of Dialogue. In the Religion project, she is researching the reception of the Istanbul Convention and disputes about sexual education in Estonia and comparatively in the Baltic. Gintare Poce is a researcher and lecturer at Vytautas Magnus University. Her research interests include religion and media, discourse analysis, and inclusion in higher education. Gintare's responsibility in the Religion project was to research the role of religions in constructing a public discourse of gender equality. And then last but not least is Ilva Skolte, an associate professor in the Faculty of Communications, Riga Stradins University in Latvia. Her research on media and political discourse, often from a critical and feminist point of view, is one of the most important foci. In the Religion project, she is part of the team from the University of Latvia analyzing how the media discusses the Istanbul Convention and sexual education. As I listen to all of these bios that I'm reading out, it's incredible how timely and compelling all of the topics you're working on are, and I'm looking forward to learning from all of you today. Over to Milda, I think.
Thank you, Amy, so much for this extensive presentation of our members of this webinar. I would like to say a few words about the project that we conducted. We started it in 2021. And it was challenged start because you know the pandemic was still there, and nevertheless we already conducted field work in the summer of 2021 when we collected more than 120 interviews with religious women in Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. And also we collected more than 1,400 newspapers articles, which will be analyzed and presented also today in Gintare's paper. So the project had the main aim to investigate the role of religion on the implementation of gender equality and to reveal intra-religious and interreligious developments for sustaining resisting gender equality in Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Norway. And as you already mentioned, we have received a very generous grant from EEA, Norway grants, and we were very lucky to have 4 institutions participating in the project and a group of scholars joining the project from various disciplines: theology, biblical studies, study of religions, sociology, anthropology, and all our efforts produced results of this project, which were published by the end of 2024 in the special issue of the journal Religion and Society in Central and Eastern Europe. And later in the year 2025, we published this book that we would like to present today. And if you are interested more in the methodology of the project and other results, the resources, the events that we have organized, you may visit our website, religionandgender.eu, and there you will find this important information. And now I would like to give a word to Marianne, with whom we have been working very closely in preparing this book. So Marianne, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Milda, and hello everybody from Oslo, Norway, Oslo University. Greetings to colleagues and also congratulations from our Dean of Research, Anne Hege Grung, who has also been a researcher and the chair of the Norwegian team in this project. So I'm very happy that this collaboration resulted in this great book, and I'm really happy to be able, as one of the 3 editors, to say a few words about the structure of the book and the overall theme and topic of the book, and then I will leave it to good colleagues to go more into detail on some of the case studies that you will meet. First of all, I have to say that this is a very interdisciplinary project and a book. And it's also reflected in the volume that we have the same material in the bottom, but we have different disciplines, different methods, different theories, and also from a variety of sources, we have somehow collected this into this overall volume. So it's quite diverse, and as Milda said, representing many different fields in the study of religion and theology. And what we have in the book is that we reflect on, of course, the core concepts, religion and gender equality, and we try to somehow find different ways where they intersect, and also to look at historical perspectives and contemporary perspectives, and to see how these issues somehow are discussed and how they're influencing. And one of the core questions is, so for gender equality, are religions a hinder or a resource? That's somehow it's a very yes-no question, but somehow that's along these lines we're on the overall interested. So what are religions doing when it comes to gender equality? Is it productive? Is it a hindrance? And how is that spelled out and showed in, of course, the 3 or 4 countries we have under scrutination, but also in the different religious context among all the variety of women. So it's a quite complex book. It's a quite complex project, but I would say that if you read the table of content, you will get an idea about in what directions we are investigating. And as I said, we are concerned about the current situation in the Baltic countries around the Baltic Sea. And we are interested in that very specific geopolitical situation, the historical situation as post-Soviet context. And we are also interested in this neighborhood Nordic Baltic. And that's why it's such an interesting thing for Norwegian scholars also to be engaged in this project. And we are somehow neighbors around the sea, but we also have very different histories and very different contexts when it comes to gender and when it comes to religion and gender equality. So let me just say a few things about the volume and how we are structuring it. We have 5 different, what we called critical research area for studying religion and gender equality. And we try to somehow, in our introduction and in the overall volume, we try to somehow categorize the different studies. Either it was studies of, based on the interviews with these women from the different contexts, whether it was based on media hits as material, or whether it was educational material. So we have somehow a whole set of different material that we studied, but we wanted to look at conceptualizations. How do the various contexts and people conceptualize gender equality within these religious concepts? That was the first one. And then we were interested in the intra-religious matters. So within each religion are also very diverse in itself. So how were the different actors thinking? It was not like all the Muslims thought that way, all the Muslims or the Christians or Protestants thought that way. There was a lot of diversity to handle also within. So the intra-religious has been a very important perspective. And of course, the interdenominal and interreligious perspective was also very important, between and among. How is all these things, what's the sameness, what's the difference, what's the tensions? And then we were interested in the public discourses around this, and then as using education as media as 2 places where we really saw this public discussion visible. And also how religious science, how this was somehow in an interdisciplinary space, how this was discussed broader. So it's these 5 research areas that we try to somehow outline and categorize each essay, each chapter within. And we didn't like have part 1, part 2, part 3. I have to admit from backstage, from the editors, that we were actually discussing, could we structure and organize all these articles according to parts or clusters? But then we just decided that no, we will just let them stand on their own as chapters, and then it will be a little bit up to the reader to find these connections, in addition to what we say in the introduction. And I'm going to end my small introduction by just reading for you the titles of each chapter, because I think they need some attention, all of them, those who will be presented now, but also so you get an idea of what we are doing broadly. Okay, religion and gender equality in the Baltic states, key aspects of Soviet and post-Soviet developments, chapter 1. Chapter 2, female president but not female priests, Catholic and Evangelical Lutheran women's discourse on female ordination in gender relations in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Third chapter, conceptualizations of gender inequality among Latvian Christian women. Fourth, between gender equality and religion, highest Baltic Muslim women's quest for true Islam. Gender as a non-issue in Lithuanian female Muslims' lives. Chapter 6, gendering paganism in Lithuania and Estonia, between the reconstruction of tradition and memories of the Soviet past. Gender inequalities in lived Christianity, Catholic and Lutheran evangelical women's understanding of gender roles in the family in Estonia and Latvia. 8, from a denominational of LGBT plus to privatization of intimate citizenship in the Lithuanian Catholic Church. Baltic parable of life and death, Christian opinions on gendered violence in the context of the Istanbul Convention. Religious gender politics in Lithuania and Norway, interdenominational and interreligious alliances and their positionings. And last chapter, intersections of religion and gender in public schools and of Baltic countries. So as you hear, some of the chapters do from one country, one case, one religious denomination. Some do comparative of 2 or even 3 and even 4. So there's a variety of categories and a variety of perspectives. So this was both an invitation to, of course, read all the book, the whole of the book, but also some of an introduction to my colleagues that now will enter the scene.
Yeah, so I think now we would like to give floor to Gintarė, who will present the chapter, which starts with the words Baltic parable.
Yes.
So
yes, and Milda, I would like to share my slides. If
Yes.
you can and share yours, that would be great. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so could you see the slides? Yes, they are moving. Yes, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so as Milda mentioned, so I will just present to you one of the chapters of this book, and this chapter talks about Christian opinions on gendered violence in the context of Istanbul Convention. And this chapter was prepared together with colleagues Ilva Skulte, who will join us, and Anna Kull, who is here with us right now. So after my presentation, Ilva and Anna will also give their insights and comments on the results on the chapter, of maybe some theoretical insights. And okay, and so what we analyzed. This chapter analyzed how in the Baltic countries the gendered violence is covered by silence, encouraged by political and not political involvement. And further, the chapter explores how this discourse has shifted public attention from gendered violence in families to protecting and strengthening the traditional family. And why we talk about the Istanbul Convention? So I'm not going to present what is Istanbul Convention. I think everyone in Europe and beyond knows about this document, but we chose this case because it is an exceptional example that showed the really active role of religion. By saying religion, I mean religious actors, various religious organizations. So this example showed the active role of religion in debates on gender and family concept, and even showed some kind of influence on political decisions and legislations. And this human rights document triggered passionate public debates in many European countries, as well as in Baltics. And these debates also involved religious actors and organizations. And you can see some photos are taken from the protest against Istanbul Convention in Lithuania and Latvia. And we had these two main research questions. What religious and non-religious opinions on the Istanbul Convention are expressed in Baltic, secular and religious media discourse? And also, how do religious women in Baltic countries talk about the Istanbul Convention and violence against the women in the context of Istanbul Convention? And of course, I need to mention a couple of theoretical insights. So in our chapter, the theoretical part highlights the role of religious actors in negotiating their values, rights, norms related to violence against women in public and private spheres. Also, our chapter includes a discussion on the specificities on conditions of the access to the public sphere of religious actors. And we included in our theoretical part key insights from Habermas about model of modern democratic, the role of a discourse in the public sphere, why and how actors enter the public sphere, and why it is really important for the democratic state, democratic society. We also relied on some of the Casanova's ideas on deprivatization. So basically, our theoretical part just discussed the role of media, the role of religion in the public sphere, how it relates to media, how it relates to a democratic society. And we tried in this theoretical part to answer how religious actors exercise both the freedom of religion and the freedom of speech in their interactions, and how these interactions may lead to various social tensions or even conflicts, because when religious leaders are trying to promote their values, their insights, their worldviews in the public sphere, so these values may interact with other values of other social groups, so it may cause some kind of social tensions or even conflicts. Our methodology, so we used media discourse analysis. We analyzed secular and religious news websites in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. We analyzed articles published from 2011 and 2021, and we selected 952 articles in total, which presented the topic of Istanbul Convention and included opinions from religious leaders or religiously oriented politicians. And we also used semi-structured interviews with Christian women. We used interviews of 89 religious women from Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. They are Roman Catholics, Lutherans, Orthodox, and also Free Church believers. So this mix of methods allowed us to see the public and private opinions on the Istanbul Convention, on gender violence, and to see how these two opinions relate and maybe they affect each other. Okay, so now let's jump into the results. So media discourse analysis from all Baltic states media outlets showed that Istanbul Convention is primarily criticized for the use of the term gender, and the confusion it might lead to around natural gender roles and the traditional concept of the family. And in all Baltic states, right-wing politicians who perceive and present themselves as fighting for the concept of traditional family are really actively involved in public discussions about Istanbul Conventions. And what interviews showed us that the majority of interviewed women have not read the Istanbul Convention. Even I could say that the couple of them read the document and have had a really strong opinion about this document. But the majority, the bigger part of the interview participants just use the same keywords, arguments when discussing Istanbul Convention, the same keywords, arguments that are presented in the media by religious leaders, by religiously oriented politicians. Also, the part of the interview participants said that they rely on their church leaders' opinion on the Istanbul Convention. I remember one participant said that, I have not read the document. I know there is a public debates about it, but my priest said that this document is really bad for the society, that it promotes LGBT rights. So I am not sure. It shows that this document creates confusion, so I'm against it. And what we can also say that for religious women, discourse on the Istanbul Convention in the public sphere creates like confusion and suspicion. Like I presented the example previously about one interview participant. So what could be the conclusion? Religious actors articulate secular language and arguments for the privacy of family life, freedom of religion, parental rights, and dangers of LGBTIQ+ rights. And our research showed that violence against women becomes a private matter, and thus states and churches should not take any responsibility. This is what we saw in the analyzing media discourse. And religious actors in the Baltics have mostly chosen to side with the anti-genderism campaigns that resist gender equality. And when we analyze the media discourse, analyze the keywords, used arguments by religious actors, religiously oriented politicians, we see that these arguments are the same as used in all of the Europe by other anti-genderist alliances, and we can say that in the Baltics, these arguments follows an international anti-genderist discourse building strategy. So the main the main idea from our chapter is that the issue of violence against women has been silenced by religious figures and religiously oriented politicians who have pointed the discussion to the dangers of the term gender, sex education, and promotion of LGBTIQ+ rights. And these ideological words around the Istanbul Convention and the concept of gender, the concept of what is traditional family, what is family. So these demonstrated that both religious leaders and politicians are capable of using gender as a concept to empower their social position and enhance a political mobilization. So our chapter just shows how religion participates actively in the public sphere related to gender questions and shows some kind of values and even try to influence political decision, because ratifying Istanbul Convention is a political decision of the state, and it shows that religious actors are really active in this issue. So, and now I maybe invite Anna. I can see that Ilva has not joined yet, but maybe I invite Anna to give here maybe insights, comments on our results on our chapter.
Thank you very much, Kintara, for your nice overview of our chapter. And we both know that there was so much what we needed to take out, because we had a lot of material, lots of ideas and so on. So it was a constant struggle to keep the chapter somehow manageable and still not to dismiss our very interesting data. And what I can say now is that the political agents and religious agents who are very actively against the Istanbul Convention a couple of years ago, they are persisting in their madness. They are encouraged by Donald Trump, saying that from day one there will be only two genders, male and female. And so I guess what is happening in America in terms of gender and will affect all countries all over the world, because it's such a remarkable thing. And if we were to continue with this project, which would be nice, then I guess we should ask also about not only sexual violence or domestic violence in general, but also maybe a little bit more about cyber violence, because there is a lot of hate against women going on in social media, publications of intimate photos or videos, for example, as a revenge for women, or to destroy the reputation of somebody. Lots of or every day more of deep fakes, what can affect any woman who is visible in public sphere a little bit. And unfortunately, while I am very happy for our volume, but the general situation is not improving, at least not as I see it from Estonia. I don't know, Milda, do you want to add something
Thank you.
Lithuania?
That sounds quite pessimistic, but I think what is important to add that Gintarė did not discuss much about the content of Istanbul Convention, just mentioned the key aspects of it, which kind of triggers different religious groups, and among them is the concept of gender. But I remember very well that when we started the project and we talked with our colleagues from Norway, they did not understand what we are talking about, why we are raising this question about Istanbul Convention at all, because apparently in Norway it was not a question. and people, the country just ratified the Istanbul Convention and implemented its measures on gender-based violence, to prevent gender-based violence. But this was a big thing in all three Baltic states, and we have been, I think, right in the point of the history when some changes were done, but also we were able to collect this very interesting material, both from individuals but also from media, showing all these discussions on the public level, but also how they land in the private lives, and to somehow summarize it and show. And I think the very interesting thing is that now, already 2 years after the project has ended, we can say that this topic has become even more important, and the current social political situation around the world is even more complicated, but also in one or another way linked to the things that we are discussing in this volume. So I think this volume is really good and important gate in opening understanding of what is happening in the Baltic states, in these societies, but also gives us a view to the changes in the situation of gender justice in Norway also, and also more broader provide some ideas, for interpretation what is happening also in other societies. So I think this volume in this sense is really worthwhile looking at and trying to understand. And we were very happy that we actually kind of managed to get into these kind of three levels of ideologies, policies, and private lives. And I think with private lives, it's also very timely, because we were able to talk to women of the generations who were living under state-imposed gender equality model in these societies, and women who have been living in the new social and political conditions. And this is, I think, very, very, very valuable from this volume. But I also see that Ilva has joined us. And Ilva, would you like to give some insights from Latvia?
Thank you very much for invitation to this webinar, because I really think that it's worth to discuss books that are coming out, and especially because of Latvian situation that is, I think, very specific and very important, because between the time we were making the research and we did it on media coverage of Istanbul Conventions, and on also interview material with women. Between this time and today, Latvia actually ratified the Istanbul Convention, so it's a big success in terms of what the progressive groups of society actually always were trying to reach. But it's also a good school, because I think the changes in government and the aspect of new political forces coming into the game and becoming a part of our parliament was actually the game changer, so to say. So, and this is why I think the lesson coming from Latvian side, and I think in many other aspects, of course, there are differences between all Baltic countries in terms of proportions of religious communities, and maybe some other aspects of political life, but there are, of course, a lot of similarities, both historically and culturally. But the lesson coming from Latvian side is that actually it's more about, I would say, ideologies and the generations, and there is really crucial aspects of new and probably young people coming into game and changing the whole political discourse, maybe into one or another direction that is changing the rules and bringing us to the solutions like ratifying the Istanbul Convention. Yes, but I also wanted to say in this context that I think what is really important is the populist context we are now, and probably something that we see in other aspects of political life is not anymore so, let's say, hopeful, and that is actually showing that the conservative forces or representative groups of society can actually take over very quickly, and the overall associations of the public is rather kind of easy to shift. So I will end with that, and I think that that's something where our book is actually a kind of a grounding stone for activities that actually make these problems heard in society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ilva. Maybe Amy, I will give now floor to you to lead the discussion further.
Sure. Thank you so much to each of you for your reflections. Some of them are very sobering, and some of them give us a little bit more fruit for hopeful directions. I wonder if there are things that each of you has raised, or maybe things that you didn't hear that are central themes to the book that you want to bring to the discussion here. So maybe a moment to respond to one another, and a moment also to raise other issues, perhaps from other chapters that are not represented, or important themes that come out in the introduction that you just want to surface here. Ilva, I understand you didn't hear everything, but if there's something that you want to make sure gets onto the floor, please feel free to jump in and respond to one another's remarks and comments.
I guess one thing what was surprising to me that even if very often in public media it is said that, well, traditional family, it is already in the Bible, and then nobody uses Bible actually because in actual discussions of gender there is no references to any particular theology, not Catholic, not Lutheran, not Orthodox, or their understandings, sort of canonical theological understandings of these issues. That no reference to theology, no reference to real context of a Bible, and because once you start to talk about family in the Bible, you are in a very deep water, because you can start with hundreds of concubines and getting married with two sisters at the same time, and so on and so on. So it is better to have a reference to a Bible, but without anything specific. And so yeah, it is even religious people use secular arguments, not theological or biblical resources, what they called. And the same seems to be globally so, that people who want to attack democracy, actually not just women, they find their arguments, and reference to religion is rather superficial.
Yeah, thanks for pointing to those strategic and superficial, engagements with supposed sources of authority. Anna, I think Marianne, you were about to jump in with some comments.
Yes, thank you very much. I think what some of you said about that the world is not necessarily going better. I mean, we started in 21 and we thought, what is this COVID thing? It destroys everything. It goes bad. We can't meet. The conditions are getting better, worse and worse. But I so much thought that it would be better. So it's this feeling of, when you remind us of where we are now, and I'm thinking this opposition for me opposition against gender equality, for me it has to do with women's human rights, basic human rights for women, and I understand, I realize, and I've learned so much how central religion is as an argument. I didn't really know, and I think many of the cases in the book, of course, the book gives a case study and information about a region that is geopolitical and historical, very significant in Europe and in the world. But it's also so much more to learn there about the dynamics and what role different religions, different scriptures, different discussions, but what role and how strong it is when it comes to women's bodies, women's rights, women's lives and privacies. So I just think that this has more than I should have wished when we started, more knowledge. It's more useful knowledge for the world than, and I would almost say, unfortunately, I'm sad to say that I think here we really raise many questions that are again backlashing us globally. So yeah, so I thought about that when you talked about the Istanbul Convention and also the opposition against it.
Yes. I think, Ilva, you were about to say something, please.
Yes, what I wanted to say, there are two things. First of all, I would say that the situation is becoming worse also in the context of the war in Ukraine, because it makes all the conflicts more passionate and all speakers more like emotional. And one thing that is very clear in Latvian political life is now we are more talking about demographic features that are very bad for Latvia. So we are losing people, and our politicians, it's like after security, the top issue in our agenda. So
we've lost Ilva.
yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, so it doesn't make the rising issues of gender equality easier. That's clear. So basically, what I'm afraid of is that those discourses that are pointing on the role of women as mother and family wife, so to say, the importance of those discourses are actually increasing, not decreasing, even if we are kind of modern and economically rather wealth societies more and more in Baltic countries. So this is, I think, is one very special and important aspect that I would like to underline in this discussion. And the second, I just wanted to say that there were some things that really surprised me as well. And one of those things is that even if we are so similar, our churches have different strategies. So we explored with Ģirts together. We compared Latvian and Lithuanian situation in terms of discourse making and the role of religious leaders in this discourse, public discourse. And what we found is that actually in Latvia it's more like third persons, like groups that are related to church that are taking the position of voicing those issues, whereas in Lithuania it's rather more about the religious leaders really coming into the discourse. So there are several, I think, similarities and parallels, and there are some things that are interestingly different, but the overall kind of attitude is the same. And I think because of this, I'd say, securitization of public space, public sphere and discourses there, it's getting worse in terms of gender equality and the role of women. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ilva, so much. I think really another aspect that we did not mention, that actually during our project, the full-scale invasion, Russian war against Ukraine started, and that was also a kind of a context where we were interpreting these results that we collected in the field work. And again, it raised other waves of discussions in public, both on women's rights, but also on the role of religion in public, and the role of religion in implementing gender equality. And we could see even more sharp divisions in the public surrounding these items. And I think we also have a question. Amy, would you like to take it?
Yes. So we have a question for all participants. Thank you so much to Gratina Belusova for posing this question. Gratina asks, when you look at the commonalities between these very different contexts that the book addresses, what would you see as common trends, perhaps global, that are at work here? In essence, why are these common trends, and why, despite contextual differences, do they occur in these countries? So I open it to any of you to take a stab at that very big question, thematizing across disciplines and geographies.
Yeah, it's a very wide question, and I think we would like maybe to have a discussion with our readers after they read the book, and then we can try to find what are these kind of commonalities, how our readers see these commonalities in these countries, because I remember when we we were finishing this project. Again, our colleagues from Norway said that they have never imagined that Baltic states are so diverse, and that the contexts are so diverse, the situations are so diverse, the cultural and also historical contexts are so diverse. And so, of course, there are certain trends that we saw of this anti-gender movement, and its manifestation in these three countries in diverse contexts. And despite the differences of religious traditions, which are in majority, or even those who are in minority, they all entailed this anti-gender positions. But also, I think, although so far we have been quite pessimistic and critical in this webinar, I think it's also important to say that we found also the aspects of criticism towards the ruling authoritative position of different religious organizations. So we found minorities of oppositional minorities in these religious traditions trying to speak out. Of course, our sample did not allow us to go deeper into explaining what and how these minorities within religious traditions, how they ground their arguments, why they found that, for instance, Istanbul Convention would be useful for them. But there were these minorities. So I think it's important to say that still there is this opposition even in the religious traditions, which look very stable, or they want to show themselves as very stable and authoritative. But there were some voices that we could hear in our interviews that were speaking against, maybe not all very well verbalized, not well grounded, but we could hear that those voices as well. So I don't know. I saw Ilva's hand now, and then Marianne. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I just wanted to take further Milda's point. I think it's important that there is the diverse. There are diverse voices, certain diversity in terms of gender and maybe value systems, and also ideological views inside the religious communities. That's clear. Problem, I think, is that the media are also tended to stage this conflict in terms of allowing rather conservative religious representatives talk in public spaces. Of course, journalist or editor can actually kind of choice whom or which expressions he or she will put into the media texts. And I think it's rather so, at least for Latvian sample, that media, for just easiness of understanding, stage it in a way that the diversity inside the church community was rather diminishing. Because, for example, in Latvia, in another project that we also did in last years, we worked exactly with the problem of two Lutheran churches. There are two Evangelical Lutheran churches, Latvian Evangelical Lutheran churches. One of them is Evangelical Lutheran Church in Latvia that is actually not allowing the ordination of women, and some other conservative values are rather more represented there. And because of this ordination issue, the split was never actually, the gap between the Latvian Evangelical Lutheran Church in Latvia and outside Latvia was never actually diminished, even after change, because our church in Latvia is a conservative one, and those who are representing other views, who are for ordination of women, and women who are actually pastors, ordinated pastors, are representing another church. So I think it's also fits very well in our discussion, because it's very important to underline this diversity, but it's not always so in the media. So media are rather tending to represent churches as conservative and people that are religious also as conservative. Thank you.
The data set is very rich, and it gives us a lot of perspective about these particular countries and this particular region, but also insights that we can apply more widely and broadly in what we, I think, agree is a very challenging environment for working toward gender equality. And two of the things that I hear clearly in your comments are religion remains central, although it shapeshifts and can be used to the advantage of different perspectives and strategically deployed over and over by different populations and different actors with different agendas, therefore countering the view that religion is static and unchanging, right? We see it as an innovative force for good and for ill. And second, the very close associations and mutual imbrications of religion and politics, which again, can be to the advantage or the deep disadvantage of women and those who would be allies in the quest for equality. And with that, I'll thank each of you panelists for your perspectives here, and also for this fresh research and the insights that you've brought to us in publication form. I'm grateful to those who were able to join us live for this webinar, but we also know that the impact of Women Scholars Network webinars is deeper and broader than those who can join live because of the many different time zones. We have members of the IAHR in, so this will be shared on the YouTube channel for the IAHR and usually attracts a viewership there. We look forward to our next in-person meeting, which will be at the IAHR World Congress in Krakow in Poland. We will meet on August the 25th, a Monday at 6 p.m. And the information about the location will be in the conference program. So with that, I say in appreciation to all of you, thank you so much for your expertise, and we'll call this webinar to its conclusion.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.